Chairman Alverson.
Present.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Here.
Representative Paul.
Here.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Here.
Representative Kane. Representative Julie Johnson.
Here.
Representative Hall. Representative Caroline Harris.
Present.
A quorum is present. Members, we're going to vote some bills out, and then we're going to get on to testimony here. Yeah, I know, but we're not close to that yet. Okay. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 3208 as pending business. Members, this is Representative Ed Thompson's bill that would basically, it has to do with TWIA and would allow coverage to be replaced. It would only allow cancellations when specific criteria are met, including if coverage is replaced by another provider, if the property is sold, if there's a total loss, or if the property is no longer insurable. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute. The committee substitute changes the minimum earned premium on a TWIA policy from 90 days to a full policy term. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 3208 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that do pass and be printed and sent to the Committee on Local and Consent Calendars. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Alverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Paul.
Aye.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane. Representative Julie Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Hall. Representative Caroline Harris.
Aye.
There being 6 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. Let the record reflect that Representative Hull is present, and there he is, and Representative Kane is present. All right. They're coming. Everybody's hungry. Let's do the other one then, while I've got all, we have all the Republicans here. What's the... Here's the bill. Hang on, members. Sorry, I'm skipping around here. The chair lays out House Bill 3502 as pending business. Members, this is Representative Leach's bill that would require a health benefit plan to cover gender transition, adverse effects, and reversals. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute. The committee substitute makes 2 changes. First, it provides a more detailed and comprehensive definition of gender transition. Secondly, church benefit boards that have been exempt from most insurance mandates in Texas since the late 1980s have been removed in order to align with existing law. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none and the substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 3502 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that do pass and be printed, and the clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Alverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
No.
Representative Paul.
Aye.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
No.
Representative Kane.
Aye.
Representative Julie Johnson.
No.
Representative Hull.
Aye.
Representative Caroline Harris.
Aye.
There being 5 ayes and 3 nays, the motion prevails. The chair lays out House Bill 134 as pending business. Members, this is Representative Bernal's bill, which adds subchapter G to Chapter 1367 of the Insurance Code. This is the baby helmet bill. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute. The committee substitute replaces craniostenosis with craniosynostosis to better align with CDC guidance and would require cranial remolding only by Medicaid and CHIP. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The substitute is adopted.
Mr. Chairman, so this, to be clear, the committee substitute only does Medicaid.
Medicaid and CHIP, yes, sir, Representative Paul, that is correct.
It's limited to a certain,
And it,
and it has for a specific condition.
correct, so it aligns, it replaces craniostenosis with craniosynostosis to better align with CDC guidance. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none, and the substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 134 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House. The recommendation that do pass and be printed, the clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Alverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Paul.
Aye.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane.
Aye.
Representative Julie Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Hall.
Well, aye. Aye.
Representative Caroline Harris.
Aye.
There being 8 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. The chair lays out House Bill 3942 as pending business. Members, this is Representative Bojani's bill that amends the insurance code by defining distant site and originating site and requires that a health benefit plan provides coverage for telehealth services regardless of the location of doctor and patient. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute. The committee substitute states that the coverage applies for patients who have a main residential address in Texas and that the physician must be licensed to practice Texas and must have a physical office in the state. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 3942 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House. The recommendation to pass and be printed and sent to the Committee on Local and Consent Calendars. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Oliverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Paul.
Aye.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane.
Aye.
Representative Julie Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Hull.
Oh, aye, sorry. Aye.
Representative Caroline Harris.
We're all tired, Leslie.
There being 8 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. The chair lays out House Bill 351 as matter of pending business. Members, House Bill 351 is Representative Cecil Bell's bill that would add Chapter 2056 to the insurance code stating a workers' compensation insurance company may contract with an accident and health insurance company to offer employers a workers' compensation insurance policy and group accident health policy together in one bundled package deal. I know that Representative Bell is working on a committee substitute, and it's very near completed, and so this was sort of the chair's discretion with his solemn commitment that it will either get fixed as a floor substitute in a way that everybody is on board, or it will not survive. So I'm willing to take him at his word, members, and so I was willing to bring the bill up for a vote today. I'm happy to, if you have any questions or concerns about that, I'm happy to entertain those now. Okay. The chair moves that House Bill 351 without amendments be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Oliverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
No.
Representative Paul.
Aye.
Representative Cortez.
351.
Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane.
Aye.
Representative Julie Johnson.
No.
Representative Hull.
Aye.
Representative Caroline Harris.
Aye.
Should be 6 and 2. There being 6 ayes and 2 nays, the motion prevails. All right, almost there. The chair lays out House Bill 4713 as a matter of pending business. Members, House Bill 4713 is, oh, it does? Oh, and he's not here. Okay, back up, members. I'm not going to lay that bill out right now. Are you one on that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, never mind. I'm going to lay it out there. The chair lays out House Bill 4713 as a matter of pending business. Members, House Bill 4713 is Representative Place's bill, which aims to expand the capacity for first episode psychosis treatment. The chair moves that House Bill 4713 without amendments be reported favorably to the full House. The recommendation to pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Oliverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Paul. Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane.
Aye.
Representative Julie Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Hull.
No.
Representative Caroline Harris.
Okay. There being 6 ayes and 2 nays, the motion prevails. The chair lays out House Bill 4194 as a matter of pending business. Members, this is Representative Marianne Perez's bill that seeks to make the appraisal process more timely for policyholders and insurers by requiring deadlines and specific process standards for the appraisers evaluating a loss. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute. The committee substitute applies to all types of insurance policies under the insurance code, including admitted and surplus line carriers. It prohibits an insurer or policyholder from demanding an appraisal after a lawsuit is filed and has been answered. It narrows the scope of the umpire to mediate only remaining dispute differences between appraisals and authorizes the umpire to select an amount between the amount submitted in the event of a weather-related catastrophe, the committee substitute also allows for an extension of the deadlines for an additional 30 days. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. And before I move for a vote, let me just say that hats off to you, Representative, for working on this measure. I think you have gotten to a very, very good place with the stakeholders, and that is exactly the kind of policy we'd like to vote out of committee. So appreciate your hard work on this. The chair moves that House Bill 4194 as substitute be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation to do pass and be printed and sent to the Committee on Local and Consent Calendars. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Oliverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Paul.
Perez, yes.
Wait. Representative Paul.
Aye.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane.
Aye.
Representative Julie Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Hull.
Aye.
Representative Caroline Harris.
Aye.
There being 8 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. The chair lays out Senate Bill 1003, which is the Senate companion to Representative Smithy's House Bill 1902, which we previously voted out of committee members. This is a bill which amends the provider directory requirements in the insurance code, Chapter 1451, Subchapter K, to include facility-based providers and physicians. As I said, we voted this out on March 21st. The difference between the House and the Senate version is that the Senate version adds language to clarify that the directory is not required to list a provider who is employed at the facility. It is a biennial recommendation from the Texas Department of Insurance. The chair moves that the Senate Bill 1003 without amendments be reported favorably to the full House recommendation do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Oliverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Paul.
Aye.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane.
Aye.
Representative Julie Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Hull.
Yes.
Representative Caroline Harris.
There being 8 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. The chair lays out House Bill 3848 as a matter of pending business. Members, this is my bill from last week, which would require the Texas Department of Insurance to develop minimum access standards for non-emergency ambulance transports under both Chapters 834 and 1301 of the Texas Insurance Code. The bill also clarifies that an insurer under each of those chapters is not required to contract with an emergency medical services provider if the provider does not have the authority or ability to operate in an insurer's service area. The chair moves that House Bill 3848 without amendments be reported favorably to the full House recommendation that do pass and be printed, and the clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Oliverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Paul.
Aye.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane.
Nay.
Representative Julie Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Hull.
Me or Paul?
Hull.
Oh, aye.
Representative Caroline Harris.
Aye.
There being 7 ayes and 1 nay, the motion prevails. Una mas, members. The chair lays out House Bill 597 as a matter of pending business. Members, this is Representative Jaton's bill that also deals with appraisal, seeks to create a deadline to protect insured policyholders in a claim settlement and ensure timely identification. There's a committee substitute. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute. The complete committee substitute creates a 180-day deadline by either party to invoke appraisal. The requirement that the insurance company make policyholder aware of the 180-day deadline in writing with their initial claim offer. It allows all deadlines to be waived by mutual agreement with parties within 20 days of appraisal being invoked. Adds language allowing appraisals to be disinterested and expands which courts have jurisdiction to name an umpire, and it creates a timeline for providing notice to the opposing party for requests of court to decide an umpire. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 597 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House. The recommendation that do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Oliverson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ann Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Paul.
No.
Representative Cortez. Representative Perez.
Aye.
Representative Kane.
Nay.
Representative Julie Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Hull.
No.
Representative Caroline Harris.
No.
Our bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the chair reports that as the bill failed to receive a majority of votes, that the bill fails to pass. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we needed Phil on that one.
Yeah.
We can bring it up
Yeah, we can bring it again for reconsideration.
on Friday
Or even we could do
or
it today.
if Phil gets here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we may revisit that one, members. Okay, let's get to, okay, any members, any other business on voting? Did we miss anybody? We good? Okay. All right. Let's get on to some hearing of some bills. And the chair lays out. Who do you want to hear first?
Cortez said that a bunch of his people had to fly home.
Okay.
Yes, if we wanted to do that for
I think we're going to do Representative Anchia, and then we're going to do Representative Rose.
great.
And so let me just find the paperwork for. Okay. The chair lays out House Bill 1452. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute. And the chair recognizes Chairman Anchia to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Ullerson and Vice Chair Johnson, members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to lay out this bill. Rarely do we get to work on matters of statewide impact that have an immediate effect on our constituents. And so today we're going to be talking about funeral insurance coverage for stillbirths. And I don't know if any of you have experienced this in your families, but it's quite common. 1 out of 160 births result in a stillbirth, and about 24,000 stillbirths occur in the United States each year, according to the CDC. So when we think about stillbirths, especially those that happen late in pregnancy, we're talking about parents who picked out names, oftentimes know the gender of their child. They've shared news, picked out paint colors, talked to family members, and there's a lot of anticipation. And when parents tragically lose a child, they're often want to have a funeral. And there are a lot of costs associated with that. And these costs can be thousands of dollars out of pocket, depending on the funeral home and the cremation costs. And if the family chooses to have a funeral and a burial, they must take into consideration expenses like funeral service fees that range between $1,000 and $2,500, flowers $200 to $700, wreaths $100 to $200, funeral plots $900 to $4,000, headstones, caskets, and the list goes on. And the total cost, when you add everything up, can be pretty significant. In Texas, according to the Texas Department of Insurance, most life insurance companies in our state require that children be at least 14 days old before they are added to a life insurance program. And other healthcare plans in Texas don't even offer this. So this is our third crack at this issue. And House Bill 1452 extends death benefits offered by an insurance provider to the burial or cremation of children less than 14 days old. Committee substitute does two important things. One, it removes the church benefit board exemption, and seeing as it is already codified in 22409 of the Business Organization Code, that made sense. And it also adds a $7,500 cap for expenses to ensure that insurance providers can meet the demand in the state. You know, funerals and the burying of our dead is a long time human tradition, and it spans cultures across the globe, and it oftentimes helps survivors heal from their loss, and in this case it's a pretty traumatic event. Members, I alluded to the fact that this is the third time around on this bill. It passed this committee last session with broad bipartisan support. It was seven ayes and 1 nay. And in the 86th session, we actually received overwhelming support with no opposition on the House floor with 141 aye votes. You're going to hear from two really wonderful Texans today. Glenn Wilcox, who's the father of a stillborn child. He's going to talk about his daughter. and Susie Wilcox. She's a second grader and has been here since the morning and has been incredibly patient and well-behaved, I might add, in our office. With that, members, I ask the Vice Chair for the opportunity to close.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Members, any questions for Chairman Nchia? Great. We reserve your right to close, and we'll begin taking testimony.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. The chair calls Glenn Wilcox. You are Glenn Wilcox?
Yes, ma'am.
Representing yourself, and you are for the bill, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Chairman, members of the committees, thank you for having me to testify in favor of HB 1452, and I speak for myself. I have 4 wonderful children. Isaiah, who's graduates high school this year, Jackson, who's a freshman in my AP class this year, and Susie, who's a precocious second grader, and my 2-year-old son, Owen. I want to thank my good friend Representative Anchia and the co-sponsors, Representative Bonin and Representative Shine. And it's a privilege to see my family's representative, Representative Rose, here. On December 3rd, 2017, my family and I were excited for our second daughter. We were 36 weeks along, and we're only 18 days away from our scheduled C-section. Earlier that day, we had sat in church and exchanged notes over the name that we had chosen for our daughter, Wendy Elizabeth Wilcox. We had her crib prepared. Hope, her mother, had made her blessing gown from her wedding dress. We were ready for our daughter. After bath time and goodnight kisses, my wife Hope wasn't feeling right, and she called her OB, and they told her to go into our hospital for monitoring. We weren't overly concerned. This had happened before, and being of advanced maternal age, we weren't too concerned with it. About an hour later, I got a call, and over a crackling bad connection, my wife said, "Can you come up here? They can't find a heartbeat." Hope was prepped for surgery. I sat there looking at Hope's face as she faded in and out of consciousness. The doctors asked for the time, and Elizabeth was taken across the room to the waiting crib. I kept thinking to myself, don't look over, don't look over. As the nurses parted, I saw her alone on the crib. She was pale against her dark hair. After each person was done with their job, they left the room until Elizabeth and I were left alone together. She was perfect, fully formed. I was overcome with emotion. Later, in talking to the insurance providers, I was told over and over that she was medical waste. As I got to spend those fleeting moments seeing her perfection, she was not medical waste. I eventually handed Elizabeth over to her mother. We sat. Hope, freshly wounded, studied every feature of her daughter. Her dark hair curled atop her head, her fingernails, the gentle curve of her lips. She was perfect. Hope was wheeled into her room, and Elizabeth was taken to the morgue. After her death was reviewed, it was determined that Elizabeth's umbilical cord just simply became detached. Nothing could have been done to save her. Her life was worth review, and she was not regarded as medical waste. Over the next couple of days, we had to go about the necessities of burying Elizabeth. I reached out to our insurance companies. After endless phone trees, each company told us the same thing. Elizabeth was not a person because she had not met a criteria and met the situation. We were told over and over that she was not a real person, but she was medical waste. We as a family were faced with the decision, what to do with our daughter. To let the hospital dispose of her as medical waste or pay for the funeral. In reaching out to funeral homes, the final expenses would range anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. We opted for the least expensive options, about $1,100 for funeral home services, about $1,200 for the actual burial services. With the simple headstone that we chose and the casket came to about $3,200. As we were beside ourselves, we thought we had insurance. We thought we were taken care of. The day before the funeral, because we lacked any possible insurance payout, the funeral home required us to pay the entire amount due before we could hold the funeral. I approached a bank for a loan, but was denied. Thankfully, a family member stepped in, put it on a credit card, and eventually we paid him back. Our sorrow, our grief, our pain was made deeper by all of these events. Had Elizabeth's life been recognized as a covered beneficiary, none of this would have been necessary. She would have been treated like any one of our other children. Recognizing Elizabeth as a person, having a place for Elizabeth was important. Her funeral and her grave brought us comfort. A year later, we lost another child who had named Finn at 20 weeks. There were no remains to interment, but we honored him by placing a small marker next to Elizabeth's grave. We finally had our rainbow baby in Owen in May of 2020, who, despite being premature, is doing well. I eventually lost hope to myocarditis as a result of the complications from vaccination in May of 2021. I was able to bury her next to her daughter, together. Neither Finn, Elizabeth, nor Hope were medical waste. When Hope passed, there was no question of her insurance coverage. Texas families should not be made to suffer with this lack of coverage. Many Texans carry multiple types of insurance and think they're protected like we thought we were. Our family had medical insurance, accident insurance, life insurance, all of us, for us and our children. We were confident that we would be protected from something like this, but we weren't. HB 1452 would help families. It will honor children, and most importantly, it would extend the valued protection of insurance to these troubling circumstances. It is my hope that the state of Texas extends the solemnity of burial and or other disposition to fully formed children that pass away under similar circumstances. While I can appreciate industry's concern of potential claims, it is important that the Texas legislature help families and offer the care and dignity afforded in death. Late-term miscarriages and stillbirths are not medical waste. There are children. HB 1452 is a common decency bill and helps policyholders in their most dire time of need. I implore you to pass HB 1452 out of committee and onto the floor and supporting it all the way to the governor's signature. Thank you for your time, and I'm open to the committee's questions.
Members, any questions? Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for your losses. The chair calls Susie Wilcox. You are Susie Wilcox.
Yes.
You are here representing yourself, and you are for the bill, correct?
Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
When my sister died, she did not get insurance. I want other babies who die to have insurance to cover their death. I hope that this will make insurance cover baby's death. I hope this law passed. Please make this law pass.
Members, any questions of Ms. Wilcox? Ms. Wilcox, will you come back up? We have a question for you. Representative Harris.
Can I ask how old you are?
7.
That's pretty brave to come and speak in front of all of us as a 7-year-old. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Ms. Wilcox, we have another question for you. Come on back. Everybody wants to talk with you. Representative Perez.
I just want to say you were a brave little girl, and thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate the feedback or the input from people, and especially because I heard you were really well behaved. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Ms. Wilcox, thank you so much for being here. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair calls Deirdre Cooper. Deirdre Cooper. Chair calls Jenny Andrews. Jenny Andrews, you are a policy analyst with Texas Catholic Conference of Bishops, and you are for the bill, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
As you said, my name is Jenny Andrews. I'm a policy analyst with the Texas Catholic Conference of Bishops, and I'm testifying in support of HB 1452. The bishops believe that human life is intrinsically valuable and should be protected by law from conception to natural death. We support HB 1452 because it seeks to recognize the dignity of the unborn child. The bishops are grateful to Representative Anchia and his staff for their work in this area. This bill requires benefit plans that provide a death benefit and health benefit plans to cover the cost of the disposition of embryonic and fetal tissue remains with a post-fertilization age of 20 weeks or more. The proposed bill honors a universal respect beyond religious, cultural, or societal norms for the sacred nature of the human person. Treating the dead with respect is a duty of the living and a right of the dead. The bishops support this bill to provide insurance coverage for proper burial of preborn or stillborn children. In many local dioceses, the Catholic Church has an existing burial ministry by which cemeteries offer free common burial for miscarried children. Through the current burial ministry, cemeteries cooperate with many hospitals, families, and funeral homes to provide a proper burial for children who die in utero. Expanding death and health benefit plans to include disposition of embryonic and fetal tissue remains shows dignity, charity, and respect to these human beings, no matter how long they lived or how they died. It would also support grieving mothers and fathers and give them one more expense to worry about after the death of their child. Our respect for the dignity of the dead is an extension of our respect for the dignity of the living. People with and without faith have always understood this. In sum, the bodies of the unborn should be afforded the same dignity and respect as those of children and adults. This respect for the remains of the human person should be given to those whose lives end before even taking a breath. This respect conforms practices of people of goodwill across the world who treat the dead with respect and charity. HB 1452 is yet another way that Texas can express our profound respect for human life and support grieving families. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Ms. Andrews? Thank you so much for your testimony. Chair calls Blake Hudson. Blake Hudson, Director of Public Affairs, Texas Association of Health Plans, and you are against the bill, correct?
That's correct. I think I drew the short straw. Want to talk a little bit about this. So our concern is that we're bringing a benefit that is not a healthcare benefit over to health insurance. So I think it was discussed in one of the witnesses' previous testimony that if the children had been older, that they would have been covered, but they would not have been covered over insurance because this is not a covered benefit in insurance. There are a number of there is actually some movement in the life insurance world. For example, the Veterans Administration covers stillborn burial and cremation services as a covered benefit in their life insurance program. Additionally, the state has a program that was passed in SB 8 from the 85th legislature to set up a burial and cremation assistance registry and a funding mechanism for that as well. So I would just encourage us to look, when we look at insurance as a way to solve a problem, we always have to keep in mind that we're really talking about 17% of Texans here when we're talking about insurance. So if we really want to address a problem like this, I think looking at some of those state programs that provide some broader, not means-tested, not insurance-specific funding mechanisms is a better place to look, and I would support the state investing in those programs going forward. So I'll stop there and take any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Mr. Hudson?
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1452? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Chairman Anchia to close on House Bill 1452.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I think you've heard some compelling testimony. I really can't add much to it. I would just point out to friends from the health plans, 14 days is an arbitrary number. Does one turn into something of value? Does one transform from medical waste to a person in 14 days? It's an arbitrary number. And we're not asking for something for free. We're just asking that people be able to buy an insurance product that will help defray the costs of burying their dead. That's it. That's it. And so these committees, like this committee has done the last session and then the session before the House, I just ask for your favorable consideration. This can help your constituents, and it's often very difficult for us to draw a straight line from the policies that we pass to the people we help, and this is an easy way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Chairman Anchia? Thank you very much. The chair withdraws the committee substitute. If there is no objection, House Bill 1452 will be left pending. Hearing no objection, House Bill 1452 will be left pending. The chair lays out House Bill 1803. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute and recognizes Representative Rose to explain the bill.
Madam Chair, is it okay? Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 1803. The committee substitute is a ledge council language with no substantive changes. Currently, patients with Lou Gehrig's disease, certain disabilities, and end-stage renal disease are eligible for Medicare even if they are under 65 due to the severity of their conditions. Medicare pays for most, but not all, of the costs for the covered health care. Medicare beneficiaries often seek supplemental coverage to defray the remaining costs. The Medigap is a Medicare supplemental insurance sold by private companies that can help offset the cost of co-payments, co-insurance, and deductibles. However, Texans under 65 on Medicare have a limited Medigap options. Currently, they only have access to 1 out of the 10 types of plans available in the state. Since the risk pool of these individuals is not spread between all 10 of the Medigap plans, premiums are significantly higher and out of reach for most under 65 patients. Currently, these premiums can run up to $2,310 a month. Unfortunately, many of the citizens who are impacted by these debilitating conditions tend to have lower incomes, require more health care, and find it more difficult to pay compared to Medicare beneficiaries over 65. Nearly 1/4 of younger beneficiaries with disabilities have income less than $10,000 per year, and 2/3 of them have income less than $20,000 per year. That means our younger beneficiaries could be charged more than their yearly income for a supplemental plan that enables them to afford Medicare costs. When these beneficiaries cannot afford these high premiums, they end up relying on Medicaid as a secondary payer, increasing state costs. House Bill 1803 addresses this issue by requiring all Medigap plans to be offered to all Medicare beneficiaries at the same price. States such as Kansas, Illinois, and Minnesota have made the decision to open Medigap plans to all members of Medicare and are utilizing these same premium protections for their under 65 Medicare population. Every state that has made these changes has not seen significant changes in Medigap premium growth and has mostly stayed under the national average Medigap premium growth rate. House Bill 1803 empowers Texans with Lou Gehrig's disease, certain disabilities, and end-stage renal disease with patient choice and decreases their dependence on Medicaid as a secondary payer, saving Texas money. TDI came to us and we're looking to address their concerns. They wanted us to provide another enrollment period and asking for a later enactment day so the department can prepare, but we'll work on that, but they did express their concerns. And so, thank you, Madam Chair and members, and I reserve the right to close. I do have a witness that would answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for Vice Chair Rose? All right, hearing none, we'll reserve your right to close and begin taking testimony.
Thank you.
The chair calls Jill Gallagher Bruner. I apologize if I screwed that up.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Jill Gallagher Bruner?
Yes.
With the ALS Association, and you are for the bill, correct?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you. I also want to thank Representative Rose for sponsoring this important piece of legislation. And on behalf of the more than 2,000 Texans living with ALS, we respectfully request your support of House Bill 1803, which requires insurers issuing Medicare supplemental policies typically known as Medigap, in the state to offer these policies to all patients who are eligible for Medicare by reasons of disabilities, including patients with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease, regardless of their age. The ALS Association is the largest philanthropic funder of ALS research in the world. The association funds global research collaborations, assists people with ALS and their families through its nationwide network of staff, certified clinical care centers, and advocates for better public policies for people with ALS. The ALS Association builds hope and enhances quality of life while urgently searching for new treatments and cures. As you know, most people with ALS become eligible for Medicare Part A and B, regardless of age, the month their Social Security benefits, disability benefit starts. Most patients choose to enroll in Medicare as their primary health insurance coverage. Medicare Part A covers hospital care, skilled nursing care, nursing home care, hospice, and home health care services. And Part B covers outpatient care, durable medical equipment, ambulance services, and mental health. However, for many of these patients, private supplemental Medigap insurance is needed to afford their deductibles and copays, as Medicare Part B only covers 80% of medical care with no cap on out-of-pocket expenses. Medigap plans cover some of the costs that fee-for-service Medicare does not cover, such as copays, coinsurance, and deductibles. ALS patients have complex healthcare needs and face high out-of-pocket costs. People living with ALS can require up to $250,000 a year to manage their disease. This can present significant financial difficulties for ALS patients and their families, sometimes leading to heart-wrenching decisions such as filing for bankruptcy or seeking certain types of care. Federal law does not require private insurance companies to sell Medigap plans to people under 65. However, most people who are diagnosed with ALS are between the ages of 40 and 70, with the average age of 55 at the time of diagnosis. The lack of federal protection for Medicare-eligible patients under 65 has resulted in an uneven patchwork of state laws on this issue. We believe that expanding Medigap coverage to Texans living with ALS under the age of 65 at an affordable rate is an important and concrete way elected officials can support those living with life-altering, expensive, and devastating terminal disease. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and for these reasons, we respectfully ask for your support of House Bill 1803.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions of Ms. Bruner? Thank you so much for your testimony. The chair calls Jennifer Cawley.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Cawley with the Texas Association of Life and Health Insurers, respectfully testifying in opposition to House Bill 1803. While very well intentioned, we do have concerns with the bill because it will increase premiums for seniors, those over age of 65, who are enrolled in Medigap plans. Just a couple of points, as pointed out, the under 65 disabled population that is eligible for Medicare has extremely high healthcare costs. And requiring carriers to include under age 65 disabled patients in this risk pool will increase premiums for the over 65 population for whom these policies were created. One of our members has estimated, unfortunately, that this bill could raise premiums for the over 65 population between 4.5% and 8%. So shifting the expense of under 65 disabled populations onto seniors could add a significant burden to this vulnerable group, many of whom have been paying for Medigap coverage for many years, who rely on it, and who are on tight budgets. We just encourage policymakers to consider alternatives that would help the under 65 disabled population without shifting these costs to the over 65 population. For example, people with disabilities who are eligible for Medicare who are under age 65 do have access to Medicare Advantage plans that are guaranteed issue, The rates are not higher for people under 65, and Medicare beneficiaries with these Medicare Advantage plans also have a cap on the out-of-pocket costs that they have to pay. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions for Ms. Cawley? Jennifer, thank you for being here today and appreciate your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on for or against House Bill 1803? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Rose to close on our bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you give me the last witness name?
Jennifer Cawley, representing the Texas Association of Life and Health Insurers, or TALHI for short.
Huh? You know, this is my first time over here in the insurance committee, so I don't know you regular folks over here. But it would have been nice if she would have came and had a conversation with me. But other than that, Mr. Chairman, again, I appreciate you all for allowing me to lay this bill out. House Bill 1803 will ensure patients' choice and cut state expenses. So by empowering patients to choose a Medigap plan that best fits them rather than relying on Medicaid services. So I appreciate the opportunity to lay it out. And Mr. Chairman, I close.
All right. Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Representative Rose? Okay. We thank you for bringing the bill. And the chair withdraws the committee substitute. And if there is no objection, House Bill 1803 will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none. House Bill 1803 will be left pending. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 1437. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute, and the chair recognizes Representative Clardy to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and remaining members. It's great to be in the Insurance Committee. I have to change my notes. I can't wish you a good morning, so a good evening. It's a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to lay out House Bill 1437. And yes, there is a complete committee substitute. This is the appraisal bill, and as you know, oftentimes an inexperienced insurance adjuster will write a loss statement or estimate that inadequately and oftentimes unsafely repairs the lost vehicle. Unsafely repaired vehicles are dangerous and could harm other drivers. Under current law, insurance companies are not required to include an appraisal process in their policies. I believe this committee is somewhat familiar with this. I know Representative Perez has a similar bill covering different other additional areas of insurance. This focuses exclusively on the automobile policies. When a dispute arises over the proper repair plan or loss settlement, a policy with limited or restricted appraisal rights leaves the policyholder facing harmful losses with little recourse. The right of appraisal clause in a car insurance policy is designed to be a way of reaching a settlement when there's a dispute over the amount of a loss between a policyholder and his or her insurance company. The appraisal clause can be utilized in a dispute over the cost to repair a vehicle or the value of a vehicle in a total loss claim. The right to appraisal offers an amicable resolution to the dispute of the loss, allows unbiased professionals to determine the loss, and offers an alternative path to litigation. This bill ensures Texans have the right to an appraisal process and a loss determination by requiring that insurance companies include an appraisal procedure in their policies. These have been common policy provisions in Texas automobile policies. HB 1437 enables either party to start the appraisal process, requires them to begin it with a reasonable time frame, and this is just good, sensible public policy will help resolve these disputes without litigation. The committee substitute implements changes agreed upon by the stakeholders, including ensuring appraisers are competent and impartial, clarifying timelines and guidelines for the dispute resolution process, and changing the appraised value difference from $1, a hard number, to a percentage of the loss, 10%. I do want to stress at this point, this has been an ongoing effort during the interim since our last session. There have been multiple meetings with the Texas Department of Insurance. The Independent Insurance Agents of Texas have been active participants in these discussions and negotiations, and we've received input throughout the process from the automobile insurance underwriters on the language that's now before this committee in the committee substitute. It's been very important. I would represent to you that this bill is, in fact, the modifications and changes have been reviewed and in large part requested by the Texas Department of Insurance because of their seeming inability to act with the rulemaking authority to accomplish these changes, and they're asking for statutory approval of these actions. I know we have a number of witnesses here. You'd rather hear from them than me, but I would be happy to answer any questions. I am looking forward to the testimony of Robert McDormand, who's one of the most experienced TDI licensed adjusters in the state, and I think he can address particularly the modification we've made concerning the $1 called loser pay provision and moving that to a 10% provision, which works for both parties. So with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions, and I would respectfully reserve the right to close.
All right, members, any questions for Representative Clardy?
Thank you.
Good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. Second week in a row, right?
Good to be
All
here.
right, great to be here. This time the chair calls Mr. Reagan Elmer. This is the best committee to be at, by the way. I'm a little biased, but it is. I have you as Reagan Elmer. You are representing the Independent Insurance Agents of Texas, and you are for the bill.
Yes, sir, that's
All right,
correct.
please share your testimony.
Thank you for having me this evening, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank you, Representative Clardy and your office for, we did have some stakeholder meetings and worked with the author and other members on this bill. Like I've mentioned in other appraisal bills, appraisals is ultimately good for the policyholder and our customers as the independent agents. So we are for appraisals. One thing I'll mention that the committee sub does that the original bill didn't have in there that we also worked with the author's office on. In the original file bill, there's no timeline set out for the appraisers to do their work or the umpire to do his or her work should we get to that phase of the process. And both deadlines were added for both of those pieces of the bill as well. So in addition to the percentage change, the deadlines are added for the appraisers to do their work and the umpire to do his or her work, which are things that we feel are important in the appraisal process.
Okay, Reagan, you're kind of in the middle of this conversation, right? You're not representing an appraiser, and you're not necessarily representing a company. You're essentially representing the agent that's selling the policies. So how do you see that this policy sort of fits in with your insureds, your consumers? What's just trying to get an understanding of why you guys are for this as opposed to neutral or against or whatever. So how do you see this fits in?
We feel that appraisals are good in the end for the policyholders, the people that drive cars around. Those are our clients, and we feel appraisal is good for them. And since we represent them in the insurance transaction, we feel appraisal is good for them, and so we're here to support the policyholder in that situation.
Okay, I appreciate that. Your testimony is very valuable here, and appreciate that. Members, any questions for Mr. Elmer? Okay, we appreciate you being here today. At this time, the chair calls Kelly Taft. I have you as Kelly Taft. You are testifying on behalf of Texas Watch and yourself, and you are for the bill.
That's correct.
Please share your testimony.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Representative Clardy, for bringing this important safety bill forward. And thank you all for this hearing on this very important issue this evening. Texas Watch is in strong support of legislation that makes fair auto insurance appraisal mandatory in auto policies. Consumers need to have options when dealing with our insurance companies, and fair auto appraisal give Texans an option when the insurance company offers too little on a total loss or a repair claim. A few years ago, State Farm, the second largest insurer in the Texas auto market, removed the right to an appraisal for repair claims in its policies. And last year, Geico tried to remove the right to appraisal for repair claims as well. Both OPIC and TDI highlighted the importance of this issue for the legislature. We fear that if nothing is done by the legislature this session, more auto insurers will remove the right to an appraisal. But auto appraisal is necessary for Texans and insurers to determine the correct value of a total loss or the cost to repair a vehicle. We analyzed over 1,200 claims that were settled by independent third-party appraisers, which you'll see in our report distributed to you. Appraisal collectively helped consumers recover over $5 million across just 1,200 claims. Breaking that down, the average difference between what the insurance company offered and what the appraisal award was $5,307 for repair claims and $3,889 for total loss claims. Appraisal increased the settlement amounts by an average of 131% for repair claims and 26% for total loss claims, with trend lines increasing over the last 4 years. Fair appraisal helps consumers. Fair appraisal is necessary, and we need fair appraisal in auto policies with clear deadlines and definitions so everybody is on the same page. As part of our data collection, I called dozens of people who hired independent third-party appraisers to help them with when their insurance company undervalued their claim, and the overwhelming feeling was I was getting nowhere on my own with my own insurance company, but after I hired an independent third-party appraiser, they were able to expertly provide the insurance company with the correct value of my claim. I hope you can see how fair appraisal helps consumers, and I hope we can all agree that consumers need options when it comes to resolving disputes with their insurance companies. And I urge you to pass this legislation to make fair auto appraisal mandatory in Texas policies. Without it, Texans will not be able to repair their vehicles safely or have the accurate value of their total loss. Fair appraisal leads to safe repairs, and safe repairs save lives. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Members, any questions? Kelly, that was excellent testimony. Come back anytime. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
At this time, the chair calls Mr. John Schnauz. Yeah, we're going to reset the timer there. I think we should. You run that? I have you as John Schnauz, and you are representing the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies, and you're respectfully against the bill.
Correct.
All right, please share your testimony.
So this may sound familiar. This week in appraisal bills, we are opposed to the bill. I want to try to focus on the specific provision that we're opposed to. I did see some substitute language through the Senate side version of this bill, which was also heard today, and it is an improvement. The provision for us that is the showstopper is the fee shifting provision. There is no restriction right now that I'm aware of on appraisal charges. And we think having both parties bear the cost of those charges actually helps keep those in control. I'm also not aware of another state that has a fee shifting provision like this. I guess also, and I don't want to belabor these points because I've made them before on other bills, but I want to point out that at the global level, if you look at the auto insurance market in Texas, it is not indicative of there being some systemic abuse going on here. Both in terms of the returns in the market over the last 5 years and also in terms of TDI complaints. I guess the other issue I would point out to the committee, I'm not going to belabor the same points we've made on the other appraisal bills, but the committee did just vote out another appraisal bill, which is a very comprehensive approach to this issue. It applies to both residential property and to private passenger auto. And we think that bill is the better vehicle, no pun intended, to try to approach this issue, and that you shouldn't have, thank you, you shouldn't have parallel bills moving on essentially the same subject, which these two are. And I would just say we have worked very hard to get the industry comfortable with the concept of making appraisal mandatory. That's a big deal. Most states don't do that. We think we can get there, but we want to try to keep that on a very narrow trajectory with some important provisions that any bill needs to recognize. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions for Mr. Schnauz? John, it's always good to see you. Thank you. I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Yes.
All right. At this time, the chair calls Cindy Hellstern. Sorry, Cindy Hellstern. There you are. How are you? I have you as Cindy J. Hellstern. You are here testifying on behalf of yourself, and you are for the bill.
I am.
All right, please share your testimony.
Thank you. I have a walk-up song,
Which is?
Your Cheating Heart.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
Yeah, it was Hank Williams, 1952, the year I was
Yeah.
born.
Little steel guitar, huh?
Okay, I support House Bill 1437, and I appreciate Representative Chardy for putting it forth. 28 years ago, I was a new bride, married an emergency specialist and I immediately became a USA client because he had taken care of Marines during the Vietnam War. 40 years later, while I was moving my car in my driveway, I had a little damage, little tiny, small bit of damage to the side of my car. I called USAA and reported it. They said, please take it for an estimate. I did. They said $2,600, take it to the body shop. I did. And within 24 hours, I got a call from the title company saying they would be FedExing me the papers to sign to turn my title over because USAA had determined my car was a total loss. I had an SUV Mercedes, 9 seats with the towing package with everything on it that you could have but two items with 60,000 miles. And it was in the height of the pandemic when you could not buy a used car. They wanted my car for parts or to sell. I said, I want to keep my car. I want to repair it. They said, I'm sorry. There's no one else you can speak to. This is the way it is. I took it all the way up to the president's for comment. Can you help me? No, ma'am, we cannot. I went back to the dealership who referred me to an independent appraisal. I didn't even know I had that option. USA never mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
In 7 months, I got $5,000 more. I kept my title. It took to the last day of the 7 months for USAA to admit that I would not have salvage title. They threatened me the entire time. So I would urge you to support this bill because they've broken the covenant that I made 42 years ago with them, and they're cheating on me. And we're going to leave, and they'll be crying, baby, baby, come back.
Yeah, I think
they'll
these
be
boots
left
are-
with people who won't even buy insurance.
These boots are made for walking, huh?
That's right.
Cindy, thank you for being here today. Members, any questions? All right, thank you so much for your testimony. The chair calls Mr. Robert McDorman. Dorman, sorry. I apologize, sir. It's been a while since I've seen you, so I messed up. So I have you as Robert McDorman, and you are representing auto claims specialists and yourself, and you are for the bill.
Yes, sir.
All right, please share your testimony with us.
Thank y'all very much for having me, and thank y'all for staying late. I'd like to testify before y'all several times, and thank you very much for listening to me again. I'd like to, this time, Chairman Alston, with your permission, I'd like to not talk about the statistics. I'd like to talk about what gives me the right to issue my opinion. I'm a licensed public insurance adjuster. I'm licensed in, we're contracted and licensed to do business in over 35 states. Our sister company is Vehicle Value Experts. We handle appraisal claims for insurance carriers and for the general public. We also handle quite a few umpire claims. The previous witness said that there's no other states that have a fee shifting for appraisal. Oregon has that, and Oregon does. We noticed that there's a downturn in the Oregon claims that we handle on the losses. The 10% fee shifting in the amended bill will bring validity to the appraisal. The shifting of it is for both parties. So if there's less than 10% either way, there would be not a fee shift at all. The appraisal is is needed. It's my position that the limiting or the removal of appraisal clause on repair procedure dispute will be the nail in the coffin for safe roadways in Texas. And is there any other questions I can answer?
Members, any questions for Mr. McDormand? Robert, we thank you for being here. We appreciate your expertise on this subject, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you all very much.
Absolutely. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1437? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Clardy to close on his bill.
Thank you, Chairman
Tallest man
Alderson
in the
and
Texas
members.
House.
The tallest man in the history of the Texas House, I might add.
There you go. All right. Learned something.
Also the smartest and the best looking.
I knew that was coming.
And the most humble, all in one package. What are the odds? So, no, I'm going to stick with tallest. I'm sticking with tallest.
You are definitely the tallest.
But thank you for indulging me on this. I appreciate the witness's testimony here today. I hope you'll pay attention to the materials that are provided. This is such a common sense solution. It is patently fair on its face. Either side can avail themselves of this and make sure experts are represented, because too often insurance companies do have an uneven body of knowledge, experience when they're going against people that only have one car wreck or fender bender in their life, and they really don't know the process. And this is somebody who does it every day, all day, week and year after year. So this keeps the playing field fair. We've worked very diligently with the stakeholders, but I think most importantly with the TDI. And I would say this, I've met with them previously, and what's come back is that we just don't feel like we can do this internally. They are concerned about the withdrawal of the appraisal clauses being attempted by multiple carriers. They started with State Farm, Geico is now making that effort, and others are certainly going to follow suit. Why? Because they think it's going to result in them having to pay claims. We've heard the disparity in the amounts that are being paid for total loss or for damage. That trend would continue and would accelerate. I agree with Robert. It would lead to more dangerous conditions on the highway. So I hope you give this bill your favorable consideration. I appreciate your attention to this matter. I would ask that you refer this to the general calendar after a good quality vote by this committee. And thank you for your attention. Happy to answer any questions, and I close.
Members, any questions for Representative Clardy? My friend, we appreciate you and appreciate your diligence on this issue.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. See you tomorrow.
Let's see. The chair withdraws the committee substitute. If there's no objection, House Bill 1437 will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none. House Bill 1437 will be left pending. The chair lays out House Bill 1716 and recognizes Chairman Guillen to explain his bill. And Chairman, we know you need to get back to your own hearing, so we're glad you could sneak over here for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, the current minimum liability insurance for damage to an individual's motor vehicle covers you up to the first $25,000. This value has not been updated since 2011, when the average transaction value of a new vehicle was at $30,000. According to Kelley Blue Book, by the end of 2022, average transaction value of a vehicle has gone up by 61.3% to $49,500 since that time, and an update is needed. House Bill 1716 would raise the minimum liability insurance to $50,000, which would cover the cost of damages for most vehicles and ensure that individuals are properly covered in today's market. I can help answer any questions if y'all have any.
So, Representative, looks like the only change we're making here is just to the minimum for property destruction. Doesn't affect bodily injury or anything like that. Is that your understanding?
That's right.
It's just for the car.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Members, any questions for Chairman Guillen? Representative Perez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Guillen, this raised to $50,000 from 25 to 50. Does that also include if someone purchases uninsured, underinsured? Is that the are they going to have the same minimums?
I think you're in the business, so you have the terminology down a lot better than I do. But right now, when you get the basic insurances out there, the minimum coverage for a vehicle would be $25,000, right? This would raise it to 50, and so I think the answer to what you're asking.
All the way across the board, right? So if I want to purchase uninsured, underinsured, which means that I cover myself, right? My vehicles, myself, in case Carolyn hits me, and Carolyn, I have a $100,000
Would never
car,
hit you, by the
and
way.
she only has 50,000.
Very good driver.
Well, then I've got some limits, right?
Right.
So that's why I'm saying, and if not, we can talk tomorrow.
It doesn't look like the bill affects the underinsured or uninsured, it's just the
Right,
liability.
Right.
Right. I believe it's just the liability. It's just what would be covered for whoever you wreck into.
So it's just a liability.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's right.
It's just a liability.
Okay, I bet you we'll have some witnesses that can answer that. We'll reserve your right to close, Chairman, and appreciate you being here. At this time, the chair calls Mr. John Schnauz. I forgot, what did we say you were going to walk up to?
So I've given this some thought. We haven't yet.
Oh, okay.
1952, Vincent Black Lightning by Richard Thompson. It's a very underrated
I will
song.
look that one up.
You've
I have
heard
you
it,
as,
you just don't know the name.
John Schnauz, representing the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies, respectfully against the bill.
Thank you.
All right.
We are opposed to the bill, and the reason's fairly simple, but I'll also try to answer the question. So understand the concern with car prices going up. I would say this is about property damage liability coverage and what the minimum you have to carry is to drive. We looked across the country at other states' property damage minimums. There are 22 other states that are at 25,000, which Texas also is. There are no states that are above that amount, much less at 50, and there are 26 that are below.
So we're at the highest level?
We are at the highest level. We're tied with a whole bunch of other states. But I would say I don't think I've suggested this yet this session. I certainly think the statistics that Chairman Guillen cited, it's really more about auto repair than it is replacement, because auto coverage is not replacement cost coverage typically. It's cash value coverage, but still, that's a legitimate concern. And if the committee wanted to look at that over the interim and try to figure out, do we need to adjust limits? We don't oppose that in every case. We do when it would take the state really out of balance with the rest of the country.
Can you sort of wade into the conversation that Representative Perez was having with Chairman Guillen?
I'll try to.
Underinsured motorist coverage account for that?
So typically you cannot buy less. Your UM and UIM limits are usually going to match your liability limits.
Okay.
So of course, people can carry far more than the minimum limits. Lots of folks.
But if you had 25 minimum.
If you had 25 minimum, your default is going to be 25 underinsured.
So if you hit somebody who had a $45,000 repair.
So you raise another good point I was going to make, which Texas also, some states don't, has underinsured property damage coverage.
Okay.
So in that situation, I forgot who hit who, but.
Well, I'm sorry, yeah, because I guess the UM coverage would be on the person who was hit, not on the hitter.
Yes, it's your UIM coverage.
Right.
And you could use that if someone with minimum limits hit you and you had more damage but still repairable to your vehicle. So.
Okay. Okay.
And we're happy to work on the bill. It's just, it's a hard bill to compromise on because it's one underlying number in a statute, so.
Fair enough. Members, any questions for Mr. Schnauz? All right, what was that song again?
1952, Vincent Black Lightning by Richard Thompson. You've heard it, you just don't know the name. It's a great song.
That's what he said.
Well, it's more mosey up music, truthfully. It's pretty slow and folksy, but it's a good song.
All right. We appreciate your testimony.
No.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. We'll see you again shortly, I'm sure. At this time, the chair calls Mr. Ware Wendell. I have you as Ware Wendell, representing Texas Watch, and you are for the bill.
That is correct. Thank you,
All right,
Mr.
please share your testimony.
We were glad to see this bill filed. Thank you, Chairman Guillen. As Chairman Guillen said, it's been a long time since we have looked at minimum limits in this state. It was 2007, actually, when the bill was passed. Senator Averett and Representative Smithy, Senate Bill 502, and it stepped into the limits that we have today. So it's been a very long time. We all know that costs have risen considerably over the decades at this point. When we're talking about minimum limits, it goes to the question of financial responsibility. It's the duties that I owe you if I hit you to make sure that you have enough resources to get back on your feet, to get back on the road, to get back to work. $25,000 doesn't take you very far these days. It's really hard if you have a significant loss to get made whole from a $25,000 policy. So we very much support this. The time is now. This state exercises leadership all the time. So let's be number one here and send a signal to the rest of the country. It's not good for any of us on our roads if people are underinsured. And I submit to you that we are all, or many of us, are underinsured right now, given the rise in costs. I will also note for the consideration of the committee, yes, it is much more expensive to repair a car these days, but it's even more expensive to repair a body. And Mr. Chairman, I know you like data, so I pulled the data. This is from the Peterson Center on Healthcare and the Kaiser. Since 2000, the price of medical care, including services provided as well as insurance, drugs, and medical equipment, has increased by 115%. In contrast, prices for all consumer goods and services rose by 78% in the same period. So medical costs have outpaced other costs. We're all underinsured these days. We need to raise limits. And again, thank you, Chairman Guillen, for bringing this bill that will make an improvement on property loss. I'm happy to take any questions.
Members, any questions for Mr. Wendell? Representative Paul?
Where we were discussing here with your comments, did you say the law was passed in 2007 or they upped the limits in 07?
The law was passed in 07 and it stepped the limits up over a period of years.
2040.
But did the original law still have steps going up, or they stepped up to what it is now and then it stopped?
No, sir, it's a good question, and I was looking at it last night. So again, this is Senate Bill 502 in 2007, and effective April 1, 2008, it took the limits up to 25, 50, 25, and then effective January 1, 2011, it took the limits up to 30, 60, 25. So it was over a period of years. That Representative Smithy and Senator Averett did that, but it got us to where we are, 30, 60, 25, and we've been there since 2011, since I had hair.
You had hair last week.
He's got some hair. He just chooses to shed it.
I do.
Representative Johnson? Yeah. Okay. I was just like, you both went like this at the same moment. So.
I was just going to say to Ware and to Chairman Guillen, thank you for this bill. You know, the $50,000 for property damage, for vehicular damage, is necessary. Most cars exceed the $25,000 threshold, but I would also contend that the 3060 needs to be adjusted as well. It is not sufficient to cover the medical expenses, and I would love for you to comment on that, and for Chairman Guillen to consider raising those two limits as well. I thought about filing that myself, just because the whole point is, if you are the victim of a negligence, a drunk driver or whatever, and you have severe injuries, it just does not even cover with the escalated costs that we have. The whole point is financial responsibility, and these numbers are just financial inadequacy. They're not truly responsible at these levels. I would love for you to comment on that.
No, it's exactly right. My family, we just had a major medical event in the last year. So I am very attuned to the cost of medical care and how important it is. We want great doctors, we want great hospitals, and we want to pay them for the incredible services they provide. And the levels that we're at right now, 30 and 60, don't get you very far to take care of our medical providers, to take care of our hospitals when they're rendering that care in the state. And so, again, I would hope that Texas would exercise leadership there as well, because I know everybody on the dais understands this, but for anyone watching at home, in third-party insurance, again, these are the duties that we owe one another. So if I hit you, I need to carry enough insurance to get you back on your feet and to take care of you. And $30,000 for bodily injury is not going to take care of you. $60,000 for everybody in the accident is not going to take care of you. We need to do better by our fellow Texans than that. And this goes back to one of the A's of insurance. You know, you look at accessibility, but you also look at adequacy. What does the insurance policy do? Does it do enough of it? Right now, it's not doing enough of it. So we need to raise limits across the board. And this bill raises property limits, and that's a great thing, and we support it.
Thank you.
All right. Representative Perez, did you have a comment too, or were you
I
just trying
did.
to
I'm
help her?
just
Okay.
curious if you have the stats for when the limits increased. There was premium increases as well. Do you know what the percentage is of those increases?
I don't know that. TDI, I imagine, could pull that over time. I don't know that it would be massive, though, because, again, we're spreading this risk. One of the fundamental functions of insurance is to pool and spread risk. So the premium increases are relatively small versus the benefits that you would receive if a drunk driver hits you, and now there's enough insurance to hopefully pay for your bills and get you back on your feet and get you back to work.
And I don't disagree with you at all. However,
Yes.
there are a lot of people that are on fixed incomes that even the smallest increase is a big deal to them. And I'd rather them have some insurance than no insurance, because then, I mean, there's nothing. So,
Oh, and I agree with you, and we have, for many sessions, not as much this session, but there have been rate bills over the years. We have always been keeping an eye on rates and premiums, but again, that's TDI's job, to scrub those rate filings, to make sure that those filings are where they are, where they need to be, and that they're not inflated. So I would encourage TDI to scrub the filings again for all of our families, middle-class families, working-class families, to make sure that they're not overpaying, but we don't want to make sure that the insurance policies are adequate and they do deliver the benefits that folks need.
thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
All right. We thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1716? If not, the chair recognizes Chairman Guillen to close on his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely willing to do whatever it is that y'all want to do with the bill. And I can answer any other questions if y'all have any. Appreciate the opportunity to lay it out.
Thank you, Chairman. We appreciate you. At this time, if there's no objection, House Bill 1716 will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 838 and calls on the author, Representative Gonzalez, to explain her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members, for giving me the opportunity to lay out House Bill 838. Over 800,000 Texans struggle with infertility, limiting their ability to build a family. 20 states, including Texas, have passed infertility coverage laws. The Texas Insurance Code requires health plans to cover in vitro fertilization procedures after 5 continuous years of infertility by the patient and the patient's spouse, but requires a fertilization or attempted fertilization of the patient, or rather the wife, oocytes to be made with the sperm of the patient's spouse. Due to the spousal requirement, many Texas women, especially single women or women who choose to conceive later on in life, are not able to access the covered care and therefore are unable to conceive a child. Nor does it take into consideration whether it is the husband who is infertile. Also, Texas's 5 continuous years of infertility requirement is one of the highest in the nation, with most states averaging only about 1 year of infertility before coverage. 838 seeks to remedy these issues by decreasing the infertility requirement to 3 rather than 5 years. It also removes a statute requiring the procedure to only be performed with the sperm of the patient's spouse. In the event that both spouses can't conceive, it also removes the language "and," because it doesn't take that into consideration. It makes it seem that both spouses have to be infertile in order for the coverage to be available. This is a simple cleanup bill to our state's infertility coverage laws, and I just want to add that it's only when this coverage is already available to somebody. If your health insurance plan already has this available, it does not require your insurance to require them to offer it. It's only when it's available to you already. But unless there are any questions for me, I reserve the right to close.
Members, any questions for Representative Gonzalez? It's good to see you back here at the Insurance Committee, Representative.
It's my first time
Glad
here
to have you
this session.
back.
Thank you.
All right, don't go far. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 838? Let me just say for the record that you have 56 people registered in favor of this bill and only 1 registered against. That's pretty impressive. And so even though nobody's testifying, you have a lot of support for this bill. The chair recognizes Representative Gonzalez to close on her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members, and I ask for your favorable consideration on this, and I close.
All right.
Thank you.
Members, any questions for Representative Gonzalez? Okay. If there's no objection, House Bill 838 will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. House Bill 838 will be left pending. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 4080 and recognizes Representative Leah Wilson to explain her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. This is a really great bill, and I'm excited to share it with you. I'm very fortunate to have UTMB in my district, and they have come up with a very innovative program and way to help those in our community that would never be able to get insurance otherwise or would go to an emergency room for care. This bill would allow UTMB's successful 3-share plan to continue operating in Galveston County. The UTMB 3-share plan is designed as a limited benefit plan that provides a set number of visits and services to enrollees. Funding for the program is made up of 3 components: employer contribution, employee contribution, and TDI grant funding contribution. As a very limited benefit plan, the program does not exist on the healthcare marketplace, nor does it have any designs to do so in the future. Currently, this program allows up to 500 individuals to have basic health care coverage who would otherwise not, and mainly due to the cost of traditional health care insurance plans and out-of-pocket financial requirements associated with these plan types. In my district, these enrollees include hardworking employees of small but impactful local businesses, such as restaurants, churches, and child care facilities. Following the passage of House Bill 2090 in 2021, UTMB's program has inadvertently been looped into a new price transparency requirement, even though the entity is not a health insurance provider. While enrollees in traditional market healthcare plans have co-insurance or deductible payments, the 3-share plan members receive clear-cut, affordable co-payments for the eligible services within the program. As such, the need for price transparency on these eligible services is not necessary, as members are aware of the straightforward price of the co-payment. This co-payment price is openly published in both the program's marketing materials and in the enrollee information packets. The UTMB 3-share plan has a very small administrative team of 1 full-time employee and 1 half-time employee with a very modest budget for administration. The requirements of price transparency would be very labor-intensive and costly to the program, making it no longer to operate. This will remove the specific 3-share plan unique to Galveston, nowhere else in Texas, the only one kind of its in the state, from these very regulatory insurance requirements, since they are not a health insurance company. Members, I have a resource witness from UTMB's 3-share plan here today who would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And Chairman, I reserve the right to close.
All right, members, any questions for Representative Leah Wilson? Okay, we'll reserve your right to close.
Thank you.
The chair calls Mr. Craig Kovacevic. Did I say it right?
Exactly, yes.
Ha, 2 points for me. I have you as Craig Kovacevic. You are representing UTMB Health, and you are neutral on the bill.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Thank you
share your
very
testimony.
much. Thank you, Chairman and committee members, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you again to Representative Terry Leah Wilson for her work with us and helping us with this hopeful cleanup of this language. For time's sake, I'm not going to reiterate. I had on my notes a little bit of the history she had given about 3-share, but just to say that 3-share is a program that is made up of 3 components for those that are covered under the benefit plan. Premium is paid by the employee, the employer, and then if they have are at the subsidy level, which is 300% or below the federal poverty level, there is a subsidy from the TDI grant that makes up that third share of the premium in there. We've had the plan in place for 15 years, started in 2008. The program, again, is a benefit plan, and we're very clear to make sure that folks understand this is not health insurance. These are scheduled benefits for in-network usage at UTMB. One of the things that I just wanted to make reference to, a couple of things, in fact, with House Bill 2090, it would require the disclosure of certain codes. It talks about the 5 or 15-digit health insurance oversight system identifiers for health insurance. In this particular program, as a benefit program, we don't have such identifiers. So some of the terminology in that would make it very hard for us to adhere to those types of requirements. There's also been talk about the all-payer claim database and reporting to that. We have only 500, so it's a very small, number of folks that would influence that. And the information collected would, again, not be the same since this is benefit plan versus health insurance. But we do have the commitment to work with our sister institution collecting that data to provide whatever they might need that might be helpful in the future. As Representative Leo Wilson mentioned, we have a very small administrative team. Compliance would have additional cost that would be very, problemsome for trying to keep the program afloat. We see this as an important service to the community to help patients from inappropriately using the emergency department by being able to continue to offer this program. And so I'll answer any questions that the committee may have.
Members, any questions for Mr. Kovacevic? All right, Craig, we appreciate you being here today. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on for or against House Bill 4080? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Leo Wilson to close on her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I just want to reiterate that this is a limited benefit plan, not health insurance. The UTMB multi-share plan provides a set number of physicians, a set number of urgent care visits and emergency room visits, along with outpatient procedures, inpatient days, and ancillary needs. This covers imaging and laboratory service, and it also covers maternity coverage. So this is a great thing for our community. We want it to continue. I do ask and respectfully ask that you vote out this favorably. And given that this is a legislative fix for a very small program that only operates in Galveston County, I would like to recommend it be placed on the local and consent calendar.
All right. Members, any questions for Representative Leo Wilson? All right, if there's no objection, House Bill 4080 will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. House Bill 4080 will be left pending.
Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 3333 and recognizes Representative Paul to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think they're a committee substitute.
Hold on. I do not have a committee substitute here. Why don't you just talk on the file, Bill, and we'll say you have a committee substitute.
It's just the Legis Council draft.
Ah, okay.
All right. The bill's a simple bill that will help a small number of people along TWIA boundary whose residential property insurance rates have been rising to unaffordable levels. The bill or the substitute will allow a homeowner who lives within 4 miles of the TWIA catastrophe area who receives a quote of insurance that is 110% of the cost of an equivalent fair plan policy will be eligible to purchase a fair plan. So basically, members, if right now, if you cannot get insurance to be able to access the fair plan, you have to have 3 declarations saying that you couldn't get it. This would give you another way to say, all right, if your increase is over 10%, you could then access the FAIR plan. So that's basically it, within that 4 miles of the TWIA zone. And Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, members, any questions for Representative Paul? We will reserve your right to close, my friend.
Thank you.
The chair calls Janice Lowe. Janice Lowe?
Mr. Chairman, I know she was here earlier, but couldn't wait through all that stuff.
I completely understand. I wish I could say the same for all of us, but
Yeah, right.
unfortunately, we're still here. All right, we will mark her as did not testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3333? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Paul to close on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I close.
All right. If there's no objection, House Bill 3333 will be left pending. Chair hears none. House Bill 3333 will be left pending. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 4506. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute, and the chair recognizes Representative Marianne Perez on behalf of Representative Cortez. Does he know how much you do for him?
I don't think so, but we're going to
We're
remind him
going
in the
to
morning.
make sure he knows. We're all going to remind him when we see him next.
Exactly. Chairman Oliverson and Vice Chair Johnson and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 4506 before you. Scientific and psychological knowledge about autism spectrum disorder have flourished, but their developments have not been matched with updated statutes. Although autism spectrum disorder is well documented and studied, the Texas Insurance Code has not updated relevant definitions and requirements. This includes legal definitions of autism spectrum disorder and provisions for health benefit plans. Clarifying these statutes is essential for insurance providers and physicians since it will standardize the process rather than create confusion from inconsistencies. HB 4506 will establish a standard definition for autism spectrum disorder, which will come from the 5th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. This bill will also establish safeguards that ensure autism spectrum disorder is properly covered by preventing health benefit plans from requiring enrollees to be evaluated for autism more than once every 10 years. As medical knowledge regarding autism progresses, the legislature needs to ensure our statutes match the need of Texans. We are working on a committee substitute that makes a small change based on input from the health plan advocates. We look forward to working with the committee's offices to see this legislation through. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, and I reserve the right to close.
All right. Thank you, Representative Perez. Any questions for Representative Perez? Okay, we'll reserve your right to close. At this time, the chair calls Mariel Fernandez. Mariel Fernandez. I have her Texas ABA, PPG, Blue Spring Pediatrics, and Self. We will mark her as did not testify. At this time, the chair calls Jackie Benestante. Okay, Jackie Benestante. She is Executive Director, Autism Society, Texas and Self, and she was for the bill. We'll mark her as did not testify. And Mr. Blake Hudson.
He's still here.
He is still here. He has a few more bills to testify on, although I'm sure his number is dwindling and he's happy.
And I want to step back for a second because I did see Representative Cortez leave the building. He said he was coming back.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, he owes Representative Perez a margarita or something.
I agree.
I have you as Mr. Blake Hudson, Texas Association of Health Plans, and you are neutral on the bill.
We will continue to be neutral even though Representative Cortez is not here. We had the opportunity to work with him and his staff on this bill to address a concern to make sure that medically necessary reevaluations could still happen and to make sure things aligned in this bill with federal law. So we are neutral and very happy that we got the chance to work together on the bill. So.
Okay, wow, that's great. Members, any questions for Mr. Hudson? So basically, this is not this isn't going to have any negative financial implications for premiums and stuff like that, as you.
There's three components to the bill, and there was one that we had a concern about, and that's what we've worked on. The other two we believe are required to do under federal requirements.
Okay.
But there is, just to be sure about the bill, there are some pieces of the current insurance code that actually are out of alignment with federal law. So I think cleaning that up makes some sense.
So we are cleaning it up?
Yes, I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, that's good testimony to have. We appreciate you for sharing that. Members, any questions? Doesn't look like it. Thank you for testifying. We'll see you in a few minutes. Unless this was your last bill. One more. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4506? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Perez to close on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I close.
All right. The chair withdraws the committee substitute. If there's no objection, House Bill 4506 will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. House Bill 4506 will be left pending. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 4500 and recognizes Representative Harris of Williamson County to lay out her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute, and the chair recognizes Representative Harris to explain her bill.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, for allowing me to present the committee substitute for House Bill 4500 before you today. House Bill 4500 is agreed upon language, and the committee substitute for House Bill 4500 is agreed upon language and requires each health benefit plan issuer to create, maintain, and make available a website that provides patient insurance information to physicians and healthcare providers. Physicians and healthcare providers frequently face difficulties verifying insurance information of patients. Specifically, there are concerns regarding accessibility of current information portals already created by the health plans. The main concern being that some portals are unavailable to the providers after business hours or during weekends. The committee substitute for House Bill 4500 requires the website to list whether the patient is insured, whether the issuer will pay the physician, whether the patient is responsible for a deductible, a copayment, or coinsurance. And the bill also requires the website to be accessible 24 hours a day for all 7 days of the week. Ultimately, the committee substitute for House Bill 4500 will create greater transparency between all parties and will provide for physicians and healthcare providers with the proper insurance information for their patients. With that, I respectfully reserve my right to close.
All right, we will definitely do that. Members, any questions for Representative Harris? Okay, at this time, the chair calls Mr. Blake Hudson.
Your last one.
He's super excited. This is the last time he has to testify today. I have you as Mr. Blake Hudson, Texas Association of Health Plans, and you are neutral on the bill.
That's correct. So again, want to thank you and your office for working with us on this. We had some concerns about what we think was sort of an unintended consequence about creating a guarantee payment for non-medically necessary services. That was all cleaned up. We super appreciate that. They're also making sure that plans that were doing this could keep using their existing internet portals. Yep. And the last piece was not interfering with some other requirements over in Medicaid. So we appreciate the opportunity to work on this and are neutral on the bill. Thank you.
Great. That's really good stuff to hear. Members, any questions for Mr. Hudson? Okay, well, we hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Yep, y'all too.
You're very welcome. At this time, the chair calls Dr. Abel Longoria. The chair calls Dr. Abel Longoria. I show him as Hospitality Health 24-hour ER and self. Registered for the bill, will not testify. Do we have anyone else? Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4500? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Harris to close on her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I appreciate the committee's favorable consideration, and I close.
The chair withdraws the committee substitute. If there's no objection, House Bill 4500 will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. House Bill 4500 will be left pending. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 3496. The chair lays out a complete committee substitute, and the chair recognizes Representative Harris to explain her bill.
Mr. Chairman and members, thank you for the opportunity to lay out the committee substitute for House Bill 3496 today. The committee substitute for House Bill 3496 allows insurance adjusters to apply for a license through the National Association of Insurance Commissioners National Insurance Producer Registry instead of with TDI if they so wish. For years, insurance stakeholders have called on states to adopt uniform and reciprocal adjuster licensing measures. In response to that effort, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners and their affiliate, the National Insurance Producer Registry, has created a simplified uniform adjuster license application and database that all states can access. Many third-party administrators and insurance companies hire adjusters to work in multiple states or regions at a time. Filling out one application location rather than 2 or 3 would save them time and money. To date, 47 states have enrolled in the NIPR electronic licensing process, simplifying the application process for the states themselves as well as applicants. The committee substitute for 3496 would add Texas to that list and help improve our licensing process. We no longer have a witness here to answer any questions, but I'll do my best. And with that, I respectfully reserve my right to close.
All right. Members, any questions for Representative Harris? Okay. Is there anyone else wishing? Well, okay, let me just call him for the sake of argument. Chair calls Mr. William Herring. We're going to show him as not responding to his call and did not testify. Anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3496? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Harris to close on her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'd appreciate the committee's favorable consideration, and I close.
All right. The chair withdraws the committee substitute. If there's no objection, House Bill 3496 will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none. House Bill 3496 will be left pending.
The chair lays out House Bill 2017 and recognizes Chairman Oliverson to explain the bill.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Almost there. Making good progress here. Thanks for letting me lay out House Bill 2017. House Bill 2017, I think do we have a committee sub? No, we don't. Okay. I'm going to talk about the non-committee sub then. Okay. All right, so basically this bill is essentially based on an idea that was given life at the National Council of Insurance Legislators. And the concept is essentially what we call a regulatory sandbox. And essentially what that means is that there may be certain regulatory requirements under statute that TDI has in rules that a potential market entrant or a current market entrant that wants to offer a new product feels as though are a barrier to offering a new product or service that would be desirable by the citizens of the state who are looking for that particular type of insurance coverage, whatever it may be. I can tell you right now the most common reason has to do with electronic things. As we move into the gig economy, we have a lot of new market entrants that are wanting to bring innovative new products, but there are certain paper requirements and things like that that are kind of 20th century. That create limitations for them to be able to offer these new products. So what this bill does is it basically says that you can petition as a new market entrant or wanting to offer a new service, you can petition the insurance commissioner to waive a certain statute or regulation, and that is done for a time-limited temporary fashion under the direct supervision of the the Commissioner of Insurance. And you are obviously under those circumstances, the commissioner's not obligated to waive it, but has the option to waive it if it meets certain criteria, and they feel like it would be a worthwhile product. That is basically designed to be a time-limited thing. And with the idea that if it ended up being a very successful, very desirable product, and there was no market disruption and no harm to consumers, that we, the legislature, would come back then and change the statute to make it permanent. So basically, think of it like, I want to do something a little bit outside the box, but instead of waiting for Representative Harris to file a really good bill to solve that, I can do it in the interim under the supervision of the TDI commissioner, and if it meets with good results, then when I come back and the legislature's in session, now I actually have a track record to show of how this product performed and to prove that no one was harmed and that it worked well and that it met all the requirements. And then that actually not only saves us time as a legislature, because now we actually know when that product comes back to be heard before us, we know that it actually works because it was tried out, right? And so we actually have an idea of how it works. So that's essentially what it does. I can tell you that it's based on a law in Kentucky and also Utah and Florida have done this as well. So the original Model Act came from one of my good friends, Bart Rowland in Kentucky. But that's kind of what it is. And so I'm hoping I'll take any questions you have and just want to kind of hear what the stakeholders have to say, and everybody can take their best whack at the piñata, and we'll see where we go from there.
Members, any questions for Chairman Oliverson? And hearing none, we'll reserve your right to close and begin taking testimony. Chair calls Miguel Rodriguez. Miguel Rodriguez, General Counsel, American Pharmacies, Texas Pharmacy Business Council, and you are for the bill, correct?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Miguel Rodriguez, General Counsel of the American Pharmacies and the Texas Pharmacy Business Council. I'm here in favor of HB 2017. As I read it, the bill intends to waive statutory requirements that this legislature enacted over the years. So it's something that's very significant to do, and I think whenever we do something like that, it should be done with caution. And luckily, I think HB 2017 provides several safeguards in the bill that ensure that the goal of seeking innovation is really met. It's intended to foster the ideas of experimentation and innovation in the delivery of insurance products. And that's something our organization definitely supports. I'm proud to say that our members, independent pharmacy owners, I feel are at the cusp of innovation in their own practices. And I think anything that fosters that spirit of innovation is a good thing. As long as it has safeguards, which I think HB 2017 has, some of the safeguards, the most important of which is that, in my opinion, is that it limits the number of consumers that would be subject to a waiver to 10,000. So it's not saying that a waiver could be applicable across the entire state of Texas in a single plan, but it would be limited to a population sufficient to test the validity of the innovative idea. Other safeguards that are in place in the bill, it requires a true innovation or a means of providing an efficient service. It ensures that the goals of the waived law will be achieved by other means. It ensures that the waiver will not substantially or unreasonably increase the risk to consumers, and requires that the waiver be in the public interest. It also limits the number of years that a waiver can be in effect. All these things build upon a waiver can only be received if it's a true experiment meant for a true innovation and not simply a loophole to avoid the application of the law. So for all these reasons, we are in support of HB 2017 and happy to engage in any discussions on the language in the future.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Mr. Rodriguez? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair calls Heather De La Garza. Chair calls Heather De La Garza. Chair calls Jay Thompson.
Fly me to the moon.
Jay Thompson with a fact. And you are neutral on the bill, correct?
Neutral. Certainly not opposed to innovative ideas. Just a couple of comments, because I know it's late and y'all are ready to go. The bill requires if a company's going to get one of these, they have to have a contractual liability insurance policy, a surety bond, or securities, or a letter of credit. I don't know that that would be really helpful or productive for someone trying to do this. So I would ask that maybe you look at either amending that or use the word may require that if it was such a product that required something like that. That may encourage someone to try that. The only other comment would make, it doesn't give the TDI a lot of direction on, what they would be waiving. And it might be helpful to them as a regulator or someone that's representing someone if there might be some examples given. I know I've submitted a lot of comments on some rules that maybe are outdated, should be changed over time in statutes with the sunset process, but this concept, I think, would be more workable if it had something specific like that. So appreciate your bringing this to the committee, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Chairman Oliverson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to be clear, I think what I'm hearing you say, Jay, is that you feel like there would be certain things that probably ought not to be suspended, and it may be good to have a list of rules that you think are okay for the commissioner to temporarily waive? or-
Well, the draft bill is, I've seen the NCOA model. There's certain laws that they can't waive, you know.
Right, obviously, there are certain things they can't.
And a list of things, and then it just gives the commissioner pretty broad discretion, but doesn't give them much guidance on what those might be. You know, it could be a type of policy form. I will tell you an innovative product I did years ago for County Mutual when they weren't subject to rate regulation was that they wanted to test the use of a mile-based rating system. And they picked 1,000 people in Houston. We told the TDI what we were going to do. There was 1,000 participants, but because they weren't rate regulated, that allowed them to test the model on, you know, what to charge. If they were driving in Houston at 2 a.m. on Westheimer, that might be a higher rate than if they were just driving others in different times in different places. So that was a very successful model that client was able to use. Today, they are probably the most innovative company on the use of that mile-based rating. You've seen these photo deals you put in the card, and you can elect that. But that started because they were exempt from certain laws at the time and could try those unique products.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions for Mr. Thompson? Mr. Thompson, thank you. Chair calls Tilden Childs and Dr. Tilden Childs with the Texas Medical Association and yourself, and you are for the bill, correct?
Opposed to the bill.
Okay. Do we have your permission to make
Yes.
that change?
Yes.
So you are Dr. Tilden Childs with the Texas Medical Association and yourself, and we have your permission to change you as against the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Give me just one moment.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay. You can go ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Alverson, Vice Chair Johnson, and committee members for allowing me to testify today, or I should say tonight. My name is Dr. Tilden Childs, and I'm a radiologist from Fort Worth, testifying on behalf of the TMA in respectful opposition to House Bill 2017. Health insurance is a complicated product. We understand innovation is important and appreciate the bill's goal of health insurance innovation that is transparent and benefits the consumer. It is clear the intent of this legislation is to create an open dialogue so that new ideas are brought forth, refined, and tested in a controlled environment where they can be monitored and evaluated. We appreciate the discretion given to the commissioner to decide whether to grant a waiver in Section 1 of the bill. This is important as the commissioner should be allowed to consider what, if any, long-term effects granting the waiver may have on the Texas health insurance market. We also appreciate specifying that the commissioner shall determine, number one, whether the public policy goals of the law or regulations being waived will be achieved by other means. Number two, that the waiver will not substantially or unreasonably increase risk to the consumers. And number three, that the waiver is in the public interest. We think these are foundational properties of any product that is being sold to the public as being innovative. However, we feel there are many aspects of this bill which, while intended to afford a flexibility for innovation, will result in insurance products that take advantage of unsuspecting consumers. For example, although the bill requires public notice of the laws being waived, there is no opportunity for public comment on the proposed waiver, and there's no outline for how the commissioner arrives at her or his determination of approving a waiver or a mechanism for challenging the commissioner's determination. These issues are vitally important as a waiver that achieves a reduction in cost likely waives requirements put in place to ensure health care quality, access to care, or competition in the health insurance market. We seek clarity on how the commissioner will weigh these concepts against one another. For example, how do you weigh public benefits of preventative cancer screening against hypothetically lowered premiums? Additionally, the 10,000 consumer limitation is restricted to an insurance product, not the waiver itself. And so we read this as allowing an insurer who receives a waiver to issue multiple insurance products subject to the waiver that are all slightly different from one another. And it's inconceivable that an insurance product could be modified enough times such that the 10,000 consumer limitation would be virtually meaningless. And that's concerning to us. I do have a little bit more if you have time.
Dr. Childs, you're almost out of time, but would you finish that last point, please?
Okay.
Or what you needed to finish there?
Well, what I wanted to say is initially, we asked that the legislation be amended to inform the consumer of what the health benefits are being waived out of the plan, what non-benefit standard features of the insurance policy are being waived out of the plan, and the operational effects these waivers will have. So there's a little more, but that's the gist of it.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Dr. Childs? Okay, thank you so much for your testimony.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Chair calls Rod Bordelon.
Spot on.
Okay. You are with Rod Bordelon, Texas Public Policy Foundation. You are for the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm Rod Bordelon, as we mentioned, and Mr. Chairman, I was going to describe the bill. I can't do it any better than you did in the layout. This is absolutely at its core an opportunity to foster innovation, and it's done on a application by application basis and a kind of a pilot project type of a scenario, the way I see it. I wanted to say, I guess, you know, I've been around a long time, and I could tell you that the legislature in the state of Texas has done a great job over the years of fostering innovation as much as possible by amending the law every session and providing more and more flexibility. And then when consumer protections are at risk, you come in and provide greater consumer protections. But Jay Thompson mentioned a little earlier an example with one of his clients, and he stated, I think, that his client was able to engage in that particular activity because they were not regulated to the same extent that others were. We used to regulate insurance much more restrictively than we do now. We regulated every aspect of the coverages. We wrote most of the policies in the state of Texas. The Department of Insurance did. We set rates in many cases. For the most part, over the years, we've provided more and more flexibility so that the marketplace can dictate that. Insurance companies already have opportunities to innovate certain coverages, and they can certainly have a lot more flexibility with respect to their rating plans. They submit those to the insurance commissioner all the time. We have all types of oversight on that to make sure that the consumers are protected. This would provide innovations kind of beyond that. There's all types of regulations. It's not just what an insurance company would necessarily provide as coverage. We have all kinds of vendors that are regulated in the insurance code. By the way, we have 260,000 regulations in the administrative code in the state of Texas. It's one of the highest of any states in the country. So despite the fact that we have a lot of flexibility, there's still a lot of regulations that are in there that people have to maneuver through. So this kind of program could really be very successful in Texas by allowing people to come forward and give us an example from their perspective to say, hey, we've been thinking about this product or service. We think these regulations are in the way. Please help us and give us an opportunity to show that this is an innovative product that can help consumers, that can help the marketplace, and ultimately, I think, could benefit everybody. So for that reason, I think it's a great thing.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for this witness? Sir, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair calls Jay Probst. Jay Probst, First American Title Insurance Company, and you are against the bill, correct?
Correct. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Johnson, and members of the committee. And thank you for letting me talk to you about House Bill 2017. I think we all agree that innovation in insurance can be thrilling and exciting and good. But the only modification we would need to flip this bill, our position on this bill, from opposed to for is an addition to the list of those areas that the commissioner is not able to grant a waiver and add anything under Title 11 or the Title Insurance Act. This is a different kind of product than the other sorts of insurance products considered here. They don't renew annually. They have very long tails. They have interaction, permanent and temporary, with with real estate and real property concerns, very long tails, and you wouldn't really, through any innovation, because people aren't renewing these policies, you wouldn't get much of a barometric reading of the market from innovating in that. And we just think it takes out the uncertainty from it, and that's the only modification we would ask for.
Thank you. Members, any questions of this witness? Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair calls Craig Island. Craig Island. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on, for, or against the bill? Mr. Wendell, are you registered?
I'm registered, but I need to change my registration from not testifying to testifying. Against.
Hold on one second, please. Okay. So you are Ware Wendell, Executive Director of Texas Watch, and you are testifying against the bill, correct? And
That
we
is
have your permission to change from not testifying to testifying.
You do have my permission.
Thank you.
It's an unenviable task to be testifying against the chairman's bill, but I guess it was bound to happen once this session. I am a capitalist who believes in innovation, but I will tell you, Mr. Chairman, in the consumer community, when the bill was added to the agenda, my phone blew up. If you look at the registrations, I imagine you will see quite a few from my friends and allies in the consumer community with concerns. I want to be clear for the record, I'm testifying for and on behalf of Texas Watch. The insurance code, as thick as it is a carefully worded and crafted document. It's a product of this deliberative process. It's a product of a lot of public input and a lot of careful thought. And this bill changes that in very significant ways. Again, I'm speaking to what I believe are the unintended consequences of the bill. We want to make sure that all consumers are protected by the same laws all the time, that we have a floor for consumer protection in this state. That's important for predictability in the marketplace. I remember vividly the fight that happened a few years ago before TDI when one insurance carrier was trying to put arbitration clauses in personal lines policies. That had not happened before. Commissioner Maddox kept it from happening, but that was a long, drawn-out fight that took a lot of resources on our side, on the industry's side. And if this bill were to pass, I think you could see similar efforts time and again before TDI, consuming a lot of resources. And so I'm very concerned about what that would mean for the functioning of the agency and all of its important core functions. And why would the insurance companies come to you and lobby you? They would just lobby TDI, for 23 months out of that 2-year period to try to get a special exception, to try to get a waiver. There would be a competitive pressure on some companies to race to the bottom. I believe in competition, but I believe in competition improving products and services over time. You've heard me talk before about the importance of McCarran-Ferguson and state-based insurance regulation. You are the decision makers. You are the policy makers as state representatives, and you regulate the business of insurance. This would be basically a wholesale delegation to the executive branch, to the commissioner. I'm not casting any aspersions about any particular commissioner, but you're giving up your authority, your power. I believe that the commissioner has good authority right now in terms of rulemaking and under Chapter 2301 of the Insurance Code to approve innovative insurance products if they pass muster. But long story short, I don't believe that this particular bill is needed at this time or potentially in the future. I'm happy to take any questions. And apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wendell. Members, any questions of this witness? Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2017? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Chairman Oliverson to close on House Bill 2017.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good conversation. I respectfully close, and don't go anywhere, members. We still have one more quick bill to lay out. I'm going to lay out Representative Cook's bill for him. He's tied up somewhere.
Great. If there is no objection, House Bill 2017 will be left pending. Hearing no objection, House Bill 2017 will be left pending. The chair lays out House Bill 4498 and recognizes Chairman Oliverson to lay out Representative Cook's bill.
All right, members, last bill on the docket for the day, laying out on behalf of our colleague, Representative Cook. This is another NCOIL Model Act. This is the Insurance Business Transfer Act. Essentially, the issue occurs when you have a block of insurance business that is trying to be transferred from one company to another company. It can be really inconsistent, cumbersome, time-consuming, and expensive if you're trying to get affirmative consent from all policyholders on transferring this book of business from one company to another, especially if it is an aged or older book of business. And so what the Insurance Business Transfer Act does is it provides an opportunity to address the limitations and methods available to insurers to transfer or assume blocks of insurance business in a cost-efficient and a time-effective manner, providing legal finality and improving capital efficiency and operational efficiency for insurance companies without disruption to consumers. Essentially, it uses a court order to effect the transfer, and so it doesn't require the affirmative consent of the policy holder or the reinsured in order for the policy to be transferred from one to another. It would require the approval by the Texas Department of Insurance Commissioner, as well as approval from a judge of a district court in the state of Texas. So it does have oversight and mechanisms for protecting the interests of the consumers. But it provides a very efficient and a good way, I think, to move a block of business from one company to another company. And with that, I'll take any questions you have and reserve my right to close.
Thank you. Members, any questions of Chairman Oliverson? Hearing none, we'll reserve your right to close and begin testimony. The chair calls Paul Martin. Paul Martin. Chair calls Jay Thompson.
The last witness of the day.
And you are registered as Jay Thompson for a fact and yourself, and you are registered against the bill, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
This bill is not a council draft, I noticed when I saw it, because it doesn't amend any provision of the insurance code. That's right. And the concept of having some and different types of assumption agreements might be good. I will say this, having done a number of assumption reinsurance agreements where a company changes itself, the name on it, the TDI does a better job than numerous other states that I've done these in. And I think this bill in its current form would make it more difficult, especially having to get a court order to get that done. Those of you that are lawyers that are practicing know how full our dockets are. Travis County, I think we're at 30 to 60 days just to get a motion for continuance on the docket in Hurt. And typically these type of transactions involve 4 distinct situations. One, you have a number of companies within a company group where they want to clean out the business in one company to sell it. And they do that through an assumption reinsurance agreement. They file it with the state regulator. They approve it. They approve the certificate that goes to the policyholder. And it's done very, very efficiently. TDI does a great job with that. Receiverships, on the other hand, do require a court order. And this doesn't amend the receivership law. So the concept, though, of getting states to have a consistent method, there are other states that don't do nearly as well. I think this is based on an Oklahoma model, and being Texas born and Texas bred, I think we can always do better than Oklahoma. So
Okay.
We'll work with you on that. So y'all, thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you.
Members, any questions for Mr. Thompson? Thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4498? Hearing none, Chair recognizes Chairman Oliverson to close for Representative Cook on the bill.
Members, I respectfully ask on behalf of my colleague for your favorable consideration of this amazing, wonderful NCOIL model bill, and I close.
If there's no objection, House Bill 4498 will be left pending. Hearing no objection, House Bill 4498 will be left pending.
All right. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Members, we've done a great amount of work today. I do have one little tiny thing. The chair moves to correct the minutes for the meeting held on April 4th. Is there objection? The chair hears none. The motion prevails. Members, that concludes today's agenda. Is there further business for the committee to address? If not, the chair moves to adjourn. Is there objection? Hearing none, the Committee on Assurance stands adjourned, subject to the call of the chair.